Welcome, my little magical moon muffins, back to my witchy kitchen. In this video, I am going to be sharing with you my recipe for a dark moon ritual cookie. I'm going to leave the full recipe down in the description below, and I also have it pinned on my Instagram account. You guys can go check that out, and I post almost daily over there. But back to the cookies. It's pretty simple. You sift your dry ingredients, set them aside, and then in a separate bowl, you're going to incorporate all of your wet ingredients. You're going to mix in your sugar and your butter, your vanilla. I recommend sifting your flour, your corn flour, and your cocoa powder for this because you don't want clumps in your cookies. Now, a lot of recipes for like chocolate chip cookies, you don't need to sift. It's a waste of time, and if anything, they'll spread more. Please, this is a point where people screw up all the time. And I've made recipes on different platforms and people will message you and go, I did everything you said, but it didn't come out right. And I'm like, did you do this? Well, no, I just got kind of bored. And one of those things is making sure that your eggs and your butter are at room temperature. So it can be at room temperature, not leaving it out for 5 minutes and it's still cold, because what happens is it's not going to be able to incorporate evenly with the wet ingredients, right? You ever whisk a cold egg and it kind of just chases its own tail? For certain applications in baking, having too many cold ingredients will fuck it up, and people think, oh, I just got the eggs out last minute. Keep your butter and your eggs out for like a couple hours. You're not going to die. What I like to do for these sorts of workings is to try to find the ingredients that I can put extra effort into, like you would for anything with magic, you know, whether making like a ritual oil, charging things under moon phases or the sun, or doing crystal grids and stuff like that. Like, I really believe that does help. Another thing that I do, and I've been doing for the past couple of years, is charging my sugar, my salt, in this case, because it is a botanical, my cocoa powder, under the dark moon, because it works. Salt is a crystal, sugar is a crystalline, it works. We charge in witchcraft a lot of our botanicals and spices ingredients under different moon phases if you do a lot of lunar work, which a lot of us do naturally, to be honest. And some lunar witches are really, really annoying about it. You can totally just make these to celebrate the new moon with your friends and just have something fun for aesthetic. I do like putting aesthetic into my craft because it's just who I am, but not to the point where it becomes so stale and stagnant that there's like, it's like IKEA. I try to find like a balance with aesthetic and magic, because magic is fucking messy. And I'm gonna tell you something. Some of the ingredients in this recipe are a bit messy. One of them is alkalized cocoa powder, which makes it naturally black. So chocolate is a bit more acidic, and whatever chemical process that they use to alkalize, it turns it into a base. And in that process, it naturally turns black. That's why Oreo cookies are black. Believe it or not, in this case, it's not because of petroleum-derived food dyes, which are terrible for you. They're terrible for people who are neurodivergent, and I just hate unnatural food dyes. So that's my perspective, and I don't care if anybody calls me an ableist. I'm used to it at this point, trust me. So anyways, you can use any chocolate sugar cookie recipe for this recipe that you prefer. Making a sugar cookie is a bit more tedious than a traditional cookie simply because you have to work with your dough while it's cold, and if it's not, just pop it back into the fridge. You want to lay your cookie dough into a disc and then wrap it with cling wrap. Once your ingredients are incorporated for your dough, having it laid out into a disc is going to make it so much easier to work with once you pop it out of the fridge, because it needs to be in there for at least 4 hours. Some people say an hour, but like it needs more than that. Sometimes that means overnight, like in my case. And that shit's going to be fucking bulletproof. I'm serious. You can point a Desert Eagle at that damn dough ball and it probably won't do anything. Please do not do that, because people are stupid. I like to split the dough disc in half, pop the other one back in the fridge, and then just do what I can for the first batch. Whatever dough you're not going to immediately use, keep cold, because what happens is some of the ingredients in our sugar cookies, like the corn flour, aka cornstarch if you're in America, and the cold butter, help keep the structure of the sugar cookie so it doesn't get too spreadable. The new moon is about new phases for the lunar cycle, right? And it's a time for reflection for me to try to navigate areas that I wasn't really happy with in myself. And I'm being serious. I do this pretty consistently in my craft because Even though I've done a lot of growth in recent years, shadow work is still unfortunately very fucking prominent in my practice. You know, there are a lot of gurus here on YouTube in the witchcraft community that say shadow work is part of magic. It's actually an exercise in psychology and it can benefit to your workings. New moon in a lot of ways reminds me of an essence or an element of the underworld. It does. There's a darkness, but it's beautiful and it's peaceful. It's not intimidating. And it's a time to clear your mind, but not to the point of like feeling bleak. And I'm probably overthinking this like most things in my fucking ADHD life. I like to be a bit ritualistic, and ritual can be important to people in magic because it helps us stay in the present. So eating a new moon cookie is not going to automatically make you get your shit together. It's not going to help you lose weight. It's not, obviously, it's a fucking cookie. It's going to help you stay in the present so you can set your intentions for the next lunar cycle. And you can take that time with spirit and you can focus on the things that you've worked on and the things that you want to work on. The new moon also cosmically is a representative of Lilith. It just suits so perfectly too, right? Like she is the dark moon in a lot of ways. Beautiful, feminine, dark energy. Right, so we've got our dough made. It's been chilling in the refrigerator. It's nice and firm and we can roll it out. Now for sugar cookies, my husband made this good point because he has more baking experience than I do like professionally, right? Is we use parchment paper to roll out our dough. We don't want to hit it with more flour because it's going to ruin the kind of, you know, first of all, it's going to not look as nice with a bunch of flour kind of tossed in when the dough itself is black. And we don't want to add extra cocoa powder because that's going to make it very messy. I think it's important for me to add that when you're charging your ingredients under any moon phase, I also after that keep them on my altar overnight. It just always feels right for me. You can use a crystal grid if you really want to draw all that energy in. You can use other botanicals. You can have assistance from deity or spirit guides. You can do whatever process works for you. Treat it like you would any other sort of element to your craft. When I say things like this, I'm trying to be constructive, to be honest, because I notice that with kitchen witchery, it's a lot of just sprinkling in ingredients and setting your intentions, and you've got to still put in the energy and the layers of work. And like, that's kind of the difference between being a home cook and a chef, to be honest. Chefs, we know what ingredients we're working with. We know where they're cultivated. We know when they're, you know, at their peak. We know the quality, and then we can make simply or technical, really amazing, memorable food. And you want to have that same sort of mindset with this, but not the technicality. You don't have to be technical and have a career and do all this jargon, right? Because you can learn anything from home. Like everything that I've done, you can learn from home, probably outside of just managing the stress of the environment of working in kitchens and being able to do everything gracefully. It's mostly people that you have to fucking deal with. It's mostly men you have to deal with. And I'm sticking to that point. For my cookie cutters, I just use a mason jar. It's totally fine to use what you have as long as it's not something that is full of lead. I wouldn't use like candle holders from the fucking Dollar Tree, okay? For those of you in America, because they have lead in all that stuff. At least in California, where I'm from, you have to disclose that those products contain lead. In other states, you don't. So for instance, I have this little, you know, candle holder here. And let's say I got it at a dollar store. It's going to have lead traced into it, right? So there's warnings on lead objects in California to not ingest from them, that they're for decor. Don't drink out of a lead cup. So why would I want to use it as a cookie cutter? So just make sure that you know the quality of the apparatus that you're using if you don't have a cookie cutter, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of cooking gimmicky tools and products that you don't fucking need. We can save that for another discussion because I have 30,000 bones to pick with that whole subject. After we've rolled out our dough and we've circled out our cookies, then we're gonna add something super dope and extra, and it's not necessary. Come on. I added black pastry glitter and it is edible. Obviously, do not use any other type of glitter. It's biodegradable. It's made usually with cornstarch, and I like to get the high quality stuff that looks sparkly. And I actually have it up here. Hold on. This is probably like 5 grams, I would assume, but I paid like $10. And a little does go a lot way. Like I used it for my cookies and there's still plenty. Like this I am a glitter goddess of the fucking Aquarius world, okay? Listen to me here. But you don't need a lot for this. So it is, in my opinion, worth the investment if you want to be extra for your spell, ritual, edible workings, but you don't have to, okay? That's just me adding that extra element to it, and it's not a closed practice to use glitter. It is not closed to hoodoo. Please stop getting your information from TikTok. It's fucking stupid. I think it's very important for practitioners to add those extra elements if they feel it to be necessary or they're drawn to it, not just to aesthetically please everybody else, but to be able to really ground that connection with what you're doing. That is my experience, and that's my opinion, and that's a philosophy that I've kind of always stood by. You don't need the glitter, but it does help you draw in that focus, right? Because it's a beautiful thing to look at, this beautiful cookie that has all of this like black glitter. It's so magical and it's so mysterious. Why would you want to skip out on that? But like I said, the fundamentals of witchcraft is not having to do all of this extra hocus pocus for fun. If you have the financial means and the accessibility, please treat yourself. It's fine. It's totally okay to like nice things, okay? And it's totally okay to be able to afford nice things. It's not okay to make people feel like shit for not being able to have access to those sort of extra things. So you're gonna add your pastry glitter to the cookies that are shaped, right? I did add a little bit of the pastry glitter into the dough, but the camera does not do it justice. It's so nice, and it's just a little, like a little dash in there, you know, through the cookie dough. And then once we roll it out and shape our cookies, then I add some on top. Then, as tedious as this is, but please trust me on this, put those cookies in the fridge for like 10 to 15 minutes. Then pop them into your preheated onion oven for 8 to 10 minutes. And then when you take them out, they're gonna be a bit soft still. Let them cool down. Here's where people fuck up too, and I've been there 3,000 times a day, is when you take your cookies out of the oven, the first thing people want to do is put them onto a cooling rack. Well, duh, it's a cooling rack, right? The cooling rack is pretty much there to store your cookies and stack them until you finish the rest. I really recommend to let them cool on the rack, unless you're like afraid of them overburning or some shit, which you're not, because you're super smart. And once they're cooled down, transfer them. They will harden. So when you get them out of the oven, they're not going to be, you know, perfect. They're going to like fall apart. But I have a tip for you guys I'm going to share. For cookies. I have had this fish spatula since culinary school. This thing I use for everything but fish because it's a delicate spatula, but it's durable at the same time, so it works perfectly for those sorts of things. I have this stupid thing. I don't even know. It's a fucking just... This spatula is insulting, to be honest, why it's even in my kitchen. You don't want shitty... It's not going to work. You're going to sit there and be like, oh, I can't get my cookie out, and then it's going to scrunch and you're going to ruin the fucking New Moon Festival. Use what you have. But in the future, if you go to like a thrift shop or just online to any like culinary retailer, there's a lot of like wholesale culinary kitchen equipment shops that will sell these for like 10 bucks. It's not like fancy. My knives and all the stuff that I use, those are investment pieces. But this thing will fucking go through hell with you and back and then make it out alive and say, fucking let's do it again. Some of you I know understand the mental battle of accepting that you're like this, right? Like that. It's just fucking, why does your mind do that? Your cookies are baked and they're ready to go. If you're using these for a ritual and you're doing more than just saying your intentions, I would store them in the freezer. That way you don't have to make a batch for every damn new moon. They will last 6 months to a year as long as they're in an airtight container and sealed and everything like that. And a good method for that is put them in a Ziploc bag, fold it, and then wrap that shit in tin foil and then label it and put the dates on things, guys. I used to be very bad with not putting dates on stuff because I'm like, I know what I did. Please just label things and don't drive yourself to fucking psychosis, because I promise you will. That way, if this becomes part of your routine, you don't feel overwhelmed, because witchcraft should be fun. You know, it's serious at times. It's very intimidating at times. It's very jarring. You know, it's like, oh my God, this is real. But it shouldn't always have to be this big stress. Like, oh my gosh, it's the new moon. I have to make these cookies because it's part of my thing. It's totally fine not to. But if you want to make a bunch in one go and then store them in the freezer, then you don't have to worry about that. Then you'll have more time to focus on making other things. And if you are a maker, not all witches are makers, right? You don't have to be. And you don't have to make these cookies. You can just take a couple tips like charging your salt or something and then resonate with that. I will say that the glitter does degrade a little bit in the freezer, so you can kind of see it still. It actually looks pretty good. But under the light, like, it's obvious that it kind of, because of condensation, melts into the cookie, I guess. It won't do that in the oven. It'll come out looking great. Like, you're going to be very surprised if you have never worked with pastry glitters and stuff before. Oh, you're in for a fucking treat. And you're in for, like, an addiction, to be honest, because look, I really like sprinkles and pastry glitter, like, a lot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And look, guys, if you decide that this is too much to do, because I get that, a lot of people complain about, like, on TikTok, like, I can't be sitting there making soaps. Well, then don't. But you can at least take some little tidbits, those gems of information, and apply them to your own craft, you know, and go from there. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Until then, you guys take care.